Welcome to my channel. Today we are diving into the ultimate fabric saving magic once again. Last month I rocked your sewing world by showing you how to cut a 6-piece skirt from just 2 yards of fabric. But guess what? Today we are not stopping there. In this video we are going to cut and stitch the skirt from the beginning to the end. So grab your scissors and your favorite fabric and let's turn that 2 yards into a fabulous 6-piece skirt once more. To my old-time subscriber, I really appreciate that. I'm not taking that for granted. Thank you so much. And if you are stopping here by for the first time, don't forget to hit the subscribe button because you won't want to miss a single stitch of this sewing adventure. Let's get started. Materials I will be needing for this tutorial: 2 yards of fabric. I'm using Ankara fabric, 2 yards of lining, tape measure, ruler, scissors, chalk, and affix pin. Step is to open up the fabric. The fabric is on fold. I'm going to open up the fabric now. Then after opening the fabric, I'm going to turn the fabric to the wrong side because I don't want the chalk to stay in the right side of the fabric. I'm going to turn it to the wrong side. After turning it to the wrong side, I'm going to fold the fabric into two. Now I'm just trying to measure what we have there. We have 34 inches on fold. 34 inches on fold. The normal yard is even 36 inches. It's not even up to 36 inches, but that's how the Ankara was folded. It was folded in 34 inches as a yard, so that's what we are using. So now you can see the cloth is already into two folds. Now I'm going to fold it into 4. Just watch the way I folded it. You can see that I folded it into 4. But while folding into 4, I'm going to leave a zipper allowance of 2 inches. You can see that I did not fold it to the edge of the fabric. I left 2 inches space. The place where I'm placing my tape measure is where I'm putting my hand is the zipper allowance. That's 2 inches. I left 2 inches down for the zipper allowance. So that side with the zipper allowance will be for the center front and the center back. The other side will be for the side. We are cutting the 4 sides at that side, while we are cutting the center front and the center back at this side. The next thing I'm going to do now is to draw a starting line for all my measurements. If the edge of the Ankara is straight, you can use the edge of the Ankara as your starting line, but this one is not straight, so I prefer to use the starting line so that I will know that all my measurements are coming from a straight line. So this starting line will also serve as the waistline. It will input all my vertical measurements. I'm going to input the hip depth, which is 10 minus 1.5 for the band. I'm adding a 1.5 inch band, so that will give me 8.5. That's what I marked there. Now I'm going to input my new length. That's the waist to new measurement. The waist to new measurement is 18.5, but there I'm putting 17 because I'm going to add a band of 1.5, so 17 plus 1.5 will give me that 18.5. so that's why I marked 17 there. So from there I'm going to measure the total length of the skirt. The total length of the skirt is 39.5 inches, but I'm going to mark 38 inches because I'm still going to add a band of 1.5 inch. Any vertical measurement that I'm taking, I'm going to remove that band of 1.5 from the measurement before measuring it. So after that full length measurement, I'm going to rule out the vertical measurement so that it will be feasible. That's my hip depth. That is the waist to hip. That's my nail line, and that's my full length. That waist to hip, just measure from where you normally put your skirt. Maybe it's high waist, maybe it's low waist. Just measure from the waist to the fullest part of your hip vertically. So the second line I'm marking there is the allowance that I'm leaving. I left 1.5 inches allowance because I'm going to use 1 inch to fold in the skirt at the down part, and I'm going to use half an inch to join it to the band. Now let's start inputting the measurement of the 6 pieces. We need our bust pan. My bust pan is 8 inches. You know, this center front is on fold, so I'm going to mark 4 inches there. That 4 times 2 will give you 8. Because it's on fold, I'm dividing it by 2. At the waistline, I'm going to remove 0.5 from that 4 inches, so I marked 3.5 there, and at the new line I also marked 3.5 on the new line, 3.5 on the waistline. That is my bust pan minus 0.5. My bust pan divided by 2 minus 0.5. That's what I marked. When you open it, we will have 8 inches at the hip line, 7 inches at the new line, and 7 inches at the waistline. So it will give you some kind of shape. So from that new line, I'm now going to bring out that 6 pieces shape, that fish shape. I'm going to bring it out with my long ruler. If you have a very long ruler, this will be better. So I'm going to bring out the shape now. So after bringing out the shape, before you cut it out, go to the other side of the fabric where I'm touching. No, not that side. Go to yes, that place that I'm touching. Go to that side of the fabric. That is the side. The side. I don't know what to call it. Maybe it's the side or the side. Okay, measure that place. Make sure it's up to your bust pan on open, not on fold though. Like my bust pan now is 8 inches. Make sure that side is up to 8 inches or more, so that you do not have shortage of fabric. If it is not up to it, just reduce your fish. That your fish shape, just reduce it a bit, and you have more fabric left. So now I'm cutting the fabric out. So after that, I'm going to place the center front. I'll pick the center front. You can see I've cut out the center front and the center back. This center front is still on fold, as you can see. So I'll pick the center front now, and I will align it on the side. You can see the way I cut it. I turn the center front to cut the center back now. To cut the side rather. So I will align it the way I did in the video, and I will use it to trace. I can use chalk to trace it out, or you just use your scissors to trace it out once and for all. You can see what I'm doing. I'm using chalk to trace it out. Anyone you like, you can trace that. You are still going to trace that side out with a scissors. The reason we are tracing that side out or shaping it with this front center front is because that part of the side is going to face the center front, so the shape must be the same. So after cutting out that side, this is where your body measurement is now applicable. You know our waist is 28 inches, and we have cut 3.5 on fold for the center front, which is 7 inches. We have 7 inches for the center front now. If I open it, you see at the waist area we have 7 inches for the center front and 7 inches for the center back, excluding the zipper allowance. The zipper allowance is not part of our measurement. It will go in with the zipper. So if you measure the waist area now, we have 7 inches for the center front and 7 inches for the center back. If we add that together, it will give us 14. Our total, the total of the waist is 28 minus that 14, it remains 14 inches. 14 divided by 4, you know the side are 4 in numbers, so you are going to divide that with 14 divided by 4. It will give you 3.5. So at the waist area now, I'm going to measure 3.5 plus 2.5 inches sewing and joining allowance. Waistline now, I'm going to measure 3.5 inches plus 2.5 sewing and joining allowance. At the hip area, if you open the center front that we cut, you know we measure 4 unfold for the hip area. At the hip area now, what we are going to have there is 8 inches when we open it. 8 inches for the center front, 8 inches for the center back. 8 plus 8 will give us 16. Our total hip is 36. Remove that 16 for the center front and center back. Remove it from the 36. It will give us what? It will give us 20 inches. The 20 inches is what the side are going to share between themselves. So 20 divided by 4 will give me 5. I'm going to measure that 5 inches and I'm adding 2.5 inches sewing and joining allowance. I have 7.5 on the hip line now, so I will go to the new line and I will impute 7 inches. I'm going to subtract 0.5 inch from it. Some people can subtract up to 1 inch if you want some kind of fitness or tightness at that area, but I don't want that. And remember that my new line is not directly on my nail, else you won't be able to walk. I raise it up to like 2.5 inches. So I'm going to measure 7 inches there. So after measuring the 7 inches there, I'm now going to connect that line to the hip. I'll connect it to the hip and I will then connect the the mark on the hip to the waistline. Then now I'm going to draw out the fish shape. Now I'm cutting out the skirts. I'm cutting out the side. So now we have 4 sides here, and we have the center back and the center front. Our 6 pieces now is completed. So now what I'm going to do is to take 2 pieces of the sides. I just need to, I'm removing the other 2. So I will take the 2 and I will put my center front in between. I'm about to start sewing the skirt. So I'll put the center front in. You can see that's the 3 pieces for the front. Before sewing, what I will do now is to cut the lining almost the same thing with the pieces. I will cut 4 center the 4 sides. I'll cut the center front and I will cut the center back. But the only difference between the lining and the main fabric is that the lining will be shorter at the lowest part by 1 inch, because you can see the way I'm folding it in. I want that ankara to fold in with the lining like that, so that my lining will not be showing underneath. So I've cut the lining. So now it's time to sew. I've cut the lining. The lining has been cut just like the fabric, just that the lining is 1 inch shorter than the main fabric. Now I will take the center front, the 3 center, like the center front and the 2 side. I will sew it together now. Just watch what I'm doing. You see the way I'm going to attach it together now. So I'm trying to arrange them on the wrong side because I'm going to sew on the wrong side. You can see I've turned the fabric to the wrong side, and I'm going to put the center front in the middle of it. I'm going to hold this with a pin, though if you know what to sew and how to sew, there's no need for you to hold it with a pin, but it's just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm holding it with a pin. That line I'm going to sew it down, and the other side too I'm going to sew it down with 0.5 inch sewing allowance. Remember, when you are sewing, right side facing right side. I'm pinning it down. If you are a beginner, you can actually pin it down so that it will not your lines will be straight. While pinning down, make sure the nail area align. If you cut it very well and your measurements are okay, there's no cause for alarm in this. Everything will align. If it does not align, it means there is a mistake somewhere. After holding it with a pin, I will take it to my sewing machine and sew that line, the two lines, and I'm going to do the same to the front lining too. I'm sewing the lining separate and the cloth separate. You can actually turn your 6 pieces anyhow you know it. There are several ways to turn 6 pieces, but I just want to use this in this video. So this is the center back. To turn the center back, you are going to take the two pieces and sew it together separately. You can't actually sew the three together, and you can sew it together. I said it that it depends on how you want to turn it, but this method I'm using here, I'm turning the two sides separately. Then I will join the sewing allowance, like the zipper allowance. I'm going to join it at that zipper allowance. So just make sure that side they align. You sew it on that side, and the second one to place it on that side and sew it like that. Make sure that the side that is facing the center front is where you sew on each other. Yes, one will be longer than the other if you make that mistake. So I will do that to the lining too, and I will come and tell you the next thing to do now. So after sewing the front separately and the lining separately, I'm going to place the lining on the skirt, so right side facing right side, and I'm going to align the lining on the skirt. So after aligning the lining on the skirt, you realize that the lining will be a bit shorter than the skirt. No cause for alarm. I told you I want to use it to turn in the skirt. Now I will make sure I align it at the upper part, and I will sew that down part with the lining. I will align the lining to the downward. You can see what I'm talking about. So I will shift the lining downward now so that I will be able to sew it. So that's how I will sew it. You can see what I did. I will sew on it like that. So after sewing on the lining, this is what I have. Now don't turn it to the right side yet, because we are still going to sew the side. But by sewing the side, I'm going to now align this lining and the skirt at the upper part, I'm going to make sure that they align very well. Yes, like what I'm doing here, I'm going to align that part. So I will now use that lining to draw in that fabric at the down parts. You can see the cloth folding in by itself. So you can say I have folded in the cloth. That's what I want to achieve with that 1 inch that I took in. The essence of this is for the lining not to be coming down from your clothes, like for it not to be showing in your dress or your skirt. So now I'm going to sew 0.5 inch on that. Yes, I'll sew it up like that, and I'll do the same thing to the second side. I'll do it to the back and to the two back piece too. You can see what I have. That's the front piece, and I've done the same thing to the back piece too. So now I'm going to place the back piece on the front piece. You can see that's the back piece. I join it at the zipper area. So now I'm going to place this back piece on the front piece. What's the essence? The essence is to take our measurements and close the sides of the skirts. So now I will start taking my measurements. So my waist measurement is 28. 28 divided by 2 is 14. So for the front piece we need 14, for the back piece we need 14. So I'm going to place place 7 at that middle line, because 14 divided by 2 will give me 7. So 7 to this side, 7 to the other side will give me 14 on this piece and 14 on the front piece, making 28. So I'm measuring 14 there. 7 is at the middle of that zipper line. So from there I will measure down my hip depth. That's where I'm going to take my hip measurement from. So I'm going to input my hip depth, and I will do the same to the other side too. I want something accurate. So my hip divided by 2 is 18. 36 divided by 2 is 18, and that 18 I will now fold my tape to look for the middle of 18, which is 9. And I'm going to place that 9 at the middle of that line, which is the average, and you can measure it from the seam line. You can see what I'm doing. Like place that 9 at one side and 9 at the other side. So 9 plus 9 will give you 18 on one piece and 18 on the other piece, making 36. So now I'll come to the new area. I measure 9 at the hip area for each side, making 18. I'm going to do 17 at the new line. On that new line, I'm going to measure 17 inches. I'm trying to connect the waist to the hip first before going to the new line. So now to measure the new line, I'm going to measure out the new line vertical measurement, which is 17 inches. Which is 17 inches. So on that 17 inches is what I will measure my new measurements. And how am I going to get that? My hip measurement is 36. Divided by 2 is 18. So my new measurement will be that 18 minus 1 inch. Just remove 1 inch. 1 inch is okay on one side, because if you remove more than that, you won't be able to work. Removing 1 inch from that 18 means that you have removed 2 inches from 36. So just input 8.5 there and 8.5 on the other side. So then connect it to the hip line. Just connect it back to the hip line, and from that new line, that's where you are going to bring out your fish shape. That's where you are going to bring out your fish shape. So what I'm doing there is to draw out the fish shape for the skirt. So when I take this to my sewing machine now, what I'm going to do is to sew on that lines that I made, that markings that I made. That's where I'm going to sew on. So I'm going to sew following that line. So after sewing this, the next thing now is to add your zipper to the back piece and add the bands. I'm coming to show you the bands now. So after sewing it, this is the beautiful piece that we have. Now the last thing is to put the band. The band, what I did to the band was that I cut a 70 inches long band. I want something very long. I'm not going to put button. I want to tie it at the back. So I make this long, and it is 4 inches wide. Out of that 4 inches, I'm folding it 0.5 inches at one side and 0.5 inch at the other side. So I folded in 1 inch like that. It remained 3 inch or like 3 inch. So when I fold it, I will have 1.5 inch. You know that's what I need, right? I need 1.5 inch band. So if you need 1.5 inch band, you are going to cut on open 4 inches of fabric, or you cut 2 inches on fold, because after sewing it will still reduce. So what I'm doing there is just to shape that part of the band. I don't want a very dull band like that. I want something sharp at the edge. So that's what I'm doing there. So I'm going to sew that end, and I'm going to sew the other end, just like the way we normally sew bands, that you leave one side open and you sew the other one, so that that side that is open is where you will attach to the skirts. So now I've sewn the edge. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to look for the center of that band. So I'm going to look for the center, because I want that band to fall equal on the skirt. So I'll look for the center of that band, and I'll look for the center of the skirt. I'm going to notch it and attach it on each other. Viewers, if you actually derive any value from this video, please drop a thumbs up for this video. Thank you. So that's the center of the skirt. It has been notched, as you can see. So I'm going to place that the center of the band on it. And I'm going to start pinning it down. So after pinning it down, I will take it to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew on that using that 0.5 inch sewing allowance. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like this video. So after sewing on that side, I'm going to close up the band. Like you can see the way I'm closing it up. So I'll start sewing on that area and I'll pack in the band very well, and I can sew just beneath the band or on the stitches that join the band to the skirt. It means I'm understitching the band. If you haven't liked this video since you have been watching it, please drop a like for it. Please drop a thumbs up for this video if you actually derive any value from it. I'm going to make sure I pack it in very well, so that the inside of the skirt will be as neat as the outside. Thank you for watching this video from the beginning to an end. If you have not liked this video, please drop a thumbs up for this video, please, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Like, share and subscribe. Thank you.